Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your hunt. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Well, I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that, killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Laugh while you can, little boy.
Great Scott.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass!
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hollywood scholar, you're my hero. I've been waiting all day to do that one. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Saturday Night Driving, where we take a break from all the nonsense of the week, sit down, and enjoy ourselves talking about good things. I am Adam, the Renaissance Nerd, and I am joined by my faithful companion, Jed, the Hollywood scholar. That's all I can come up with. I'm in second gear today, guys. Anybody that watched Ballbusters last night can understand why. So, how you doing, Jed? How you doing?
I am doing great. I adore this movie. It's one of my favorite movies ever, so I'm very excited to be talking about it this evening. And I was surprised that you picked it, so I'm very much looking forward to our discussion. And like you said, there is a lot of craziness going on in the world right now between The Witcher and Doctor Who for me specifically.
Yeah.
And then you add in all the Legend of Zelda stuff and everything like that as well. I need a break like this. That's why I always look forward to Drive-In more than a lot of my other streams.
Yeah, because listen, 90% of the time we're fine. It's that rare 10% where we're at odds at something, and it's usually whether we either one of us hasn't seen something, or we know we're getting into it. Like the day you're going to make me watch Princess Bride, we know that's going to be an interesting one. Not because I so much hate it, I'm just sick of it. But either way, so we have a good time here, and I chose Ferris Bueller's this week because we did series stuff for a couple weeks in a row, and I kind of wanted to make sure that it was going to be all right. I mean, listen, this movie, it's a cultural iconic movie. It really is. There's no two ways about it. There are at least three solid things in this movie that persist nearly 40 years later, because we're coming up on the 40th anniversary of this movie. We're 2 years away roughly from 40th anniversary. I'm old, Jed.
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, I'm old. I didn't see this when it was in theaters. I was a little too young. I saw it a couple years later on VHS, stuff like that, when VHS became a thing. But this is a movie that the older you get, the more it makes sense. Is that a fair statement?
I could see that. I mean, it is a very layered film, so an older eye might catch more than a young one would, but that's Could be said
Well,
on
it
most
doesn't.
movies.
Well, I mean, if you're watching it when you're single digits as a kid, a lot of these jokes go over your head.
Oh, absolutely.
And I did watch it as a single digit kid a
Mhm.
couple years after it was out. And then you watch as a teenager, suddenly, oh, I get all the teenager jokes now. And then you get into it more as an adult, like, oh, I get all the adult stuff in it.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at it I can look at it from every different perspective of all these years watching it. I mean, there's a reason I bought it. I mean, it's on my
Mhm.
shelf because it's a great movie.
Well, like you're saying, that's a great example of family entertainment. That's something that's been lost in modern cinema is if something's made for kids, it's so stupid that adults cannot enjoy it and the vice versa as well. But classic films that were made for the whole family, it wasn't just, hey, anyone could kind of enjoy it. It's like, no, there are aspects of the movie that anyone could enjoy, that it was some stuff were targeted to some people, some were targeted to other people. And it's just very balanced. You're bringing this up is a very interesting thing that I hadn't thought about. But yeah, it's a great
Well,
example of a balanced perspective film.
I've been thinking about this all day and how are we going to approach this? Because this is a movie that, again, it's going to be 40 years old and it's an iconically cultural. What the hell, IMDb freaking banner? Sorry, and I wanted to approach this in a different way tonight, maybe slightly different than what we normally do. But first, we're going for it. Hail and howdy to chat, watching live or on the replay. We hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Hit that like button. And for those who are watching, so we don't, unless you guys directly ask us something, like Legatus has asked a question here, we kind of just chat about it. We don't generally refer to what you guys are saying unless you directly ask us something. But Legatus asked us, fan theory, was all a dream sequence or was it real? It's real.
That is a pretty common fan theory, though.
Really? I've never heard that.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard that.
Well, because that's where some of my issues with the film lie.
Mm.
I can get over them because of how much I love this movie, but there's a lot of contrivance, a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. I mean, how much happens in just one day? And not just for Ferris, but for everybody else, too.
The one thing I was thinking about, I mean, yes,
and then, of course, the meta.
Was I doing something else I watched this yesterday? Yes, because I can. I've seen this movie over and over and over again for decades, and I was testing out a game mod that we're going to play later on, so I want to make sure it worked. So I was doing something else watching, but again, that was the one thing that jumped out at me in this watch through tonight or yesterday. The timing, the elapsed time of the movie, it doesn't quite make sense to happen basically from an 8 a.m. school day or maybe a 7 a.m. school day when he wakes up and when the movie begins, shortly before going to school, and then possibly 3 p.m., 4 p.m. when school is out and maybe closer to 5 and everybody's heading home from work. That's my one little hiccup, but we'll get into that now. One of the things that this is famous for is the fact that, let's look at this here. This is kind of the middle of the John Hughes movies. It's smack dab in the middle of the 80s John Hughes and all these ones that are supposedly an interconnected world. Right, Jed?
Yeah, that never made much sense to me. I felt like it was more just like oh, cool, isn't this cool type thing, but it doesn't make sense, doesn't seem to be built up, doesn't have a whole lot of foundation in the movies themselves. Like, you might have the occasional Easter egg in one of his movies for his other movies, but that's pretty common. Easter eggs are a common thing and are not necessarily indicative of a shared universe. So I never took that as fact. I just assumed it was John Hughes playing around and having fun, but it's not meant to be taken seriously. And if it is, I think it's retarded because it doesn't work.
Yeah, especially I've never given it much thought. I've always heard that all these high schools are in these same areas or they're all there. I mean, they're not all taking place in area. I mean, Ferris Bueller's Day Off takes place in Chicago, Illinois. So there, and I don't know where Breakfast Club takes place. I don't know where Pretty in Pink. I don't know where all those other ones take place. But for those 80s ones, especially with the Brat Pack when they were involved, they thought that there was that running theory. They said they're all connected, and people like to think that. To me, that doesn't really matter, especially because when it comes to most John Hughes films in the 80s, this is the only one I really like of all the younger cast oriented ones. I mean, when the adult ones, those are a different category. I leave those like National Lampoons, all the John Candy, Dan Aykroyd stuff. Those are a separate category for me. I don't list them among these. But
Yeah, his teenage
number one I want.
dramas, I
Yeah.
would 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
I know this is a hot take, but I'm not a big fan of the Breakfast
Me
Club.
neither.
I
Me neither.
in fact, I don't like it. But some of his other movies I like Not Another Teen Movie has him involved in it, at least to a certain degree. I like aspects of that one, but Ferris Bueller's is the one that I will rewatch.
This is the peak of all of those. Because, first of all the other ones were mostly the Brat Pack, too. This is the first one where he separated from using the same people over and over again. And the casting choices are great. Matthew Broderick, he was young and up and coming at this point. Mia Sara, smoking hot. Alan Ruck goes on to now have a actually, I would argue Alan Ruck has had a better career than Matthew Broderick at this point. I would make that argument in a way.
I could see it. If you were comparing 80s to 80s or even 90s, Matthew Broderick wins every time. But in terms of consistency, he's still acting to this day, whereas Matthew Broderick, he's lucky to be in a Jennifer Lawrence porn child film.
What?
Yeah, he was in that movie that just came out with Jennifer Lawrence, the No Hard Feelings.
The one where she's the hired whore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, trying to get with the teenager.
Okay.
He's the teenager's father.
Oh, well, this is what happens when you marry someone with a horse for a face. So that's what happens. If you don't get that, you will eventually. Sarah Jessica Parker's ugly. You're right. 80s, 90s, Matthew Broderick was in everything, and then he even transitioned to some Broadway stuff. But if you look at Alan Ruck, he's had a consistent career and done a great. I mean, apparently he's in some recent stuff that people love. Now, apparently he did run into a McDonald's with his car or something recently. I don't know. I heard about that. Nobody says alcohol was involved or anything. So somebody let me know about that. But hell, he was even in Star Trek. Yes, we want to forget Generations happened, but he was the captain of the Enterprise B.
He was.
Now,
there are parts of Enterprise I like. I'm not going to lie. Or Generation, excuse me.
Yeah. We'll talk about that someday. I'm sure it'll happen, unfortunately. But all right. So Ferris Bueller's Day Off. All right. So people who is not familiar with Ferris Bueller's Day Off? It is the story of a guy who wanted to skip school one more time his senior year, not get caught, spend time with his girlfriend, bully his best friend into taking his dad's outstandingly beautiful Ferrari, and goofing the hell off, doing random shit throughout Chicago, and then getting home before getting busted. Meanwhile, the idea of the Save Ferris is going on. His one little thing, and everybody thinks he's dying.
Well, he doesn't really participate in that much. Like, yeah, he has a joking phone call with some freshmen, but everyone else is like, oh my God, we got to raise money for his kidney. We got to plaster his name on a water tower. We got to put him in the newspaper. Nothing prints that fast. Like, that whole side plot, it's hilarious on over the top, but it doesn't make sense. So I will be taking off points from the movie. Even though I love it and I enjoy it, it doesn't make sense.
And what I do find interesting, though, is that as a character, he's not a grifter. He didn't even, like you said, he didn't even involve in that. That's just something that happened. He fucked around on the phone with a couple of freshmen, and then suddenly, you have to go all the way to the beginning when Ben Stein does the iconic Bueller. Of course, that's iconic thing number one. Bueller. And that made Ben
skips
Stein
all the way to Fry.
Yeah. So he does that, and during that, young Christy Swanson gives the report that somehow, listen, he hasn't even talked to anybody yet. The only, and I'll get to this in a second because I have a theory on how all this works in the beginning. Christy Swanson's character gives a detailed response on how somebody saw him pass out at 31 Flavors the other night. How did that start if he hasn't even told anybody except maybe Sloan that they're going to do this today? It's this, like you said, there's a meta aspect to this that kind of just, it's a game of telephone almost. That's the way my old man mind can put it to.
What's the telephone?
Shut up. You call it in, you say one thing, or the whole game, you say something, you go whisper it in somebody's ear, and you go down a chain of 9 or 10 people, and people purposefully fuck it up. So that by the time it gets to the last person, it's a completely different phrase or sentence than you started with. And it feels like it's kind of game of telephone where maybe Ferris the previous day decided to do this or not. It kind of feels like it was a last minute decision when you get his opening monologue. Because he goes, my worst performance of my career, licking my palms and this and that. It feels like, but maybe it wasn't spontaneous. All right. So we're talking about, do you think his final day off, his 10th sick day, 9 times? No, he's been out 9.
No,
that
is number 9 because
okay.
in his opening monologue with explaining how everything happens, he's like, if I try to go for a 10th time, I'll have to barf up a lung.
Barf up a lung. You're right. Old man brain not working today. I told you, I am not in top form today. All right, so do you think he planned this the day before?
It's very difficult to say because the movie gives us contradicting information, and that's one of my biggest problems with it. For example, one thing that does not make sense to me is right after he picks up his girlfriend, the Rooney calls both her home phone and then follows that number to the funeral home.
Yeah.
And it's Cameron's home phone with the message changed.
They've wired it up, yeah.
How did they do that? That must have been day before they all had the plan to record those. But Cameron, when he got called by Ferris, wasn't aware that this was a plan.
Yeah. Sloan, I think, was in on it because she pre-recorded that. I can buy that she was in on it because, remember, when the nurse walks in,
she was prepared. Like she
starts gathering her shit. She's like, oh, it's time. It's time for me to get out of here and go mess around. But Cameron wasn't in on it because when Cameron was in Egypt's land, let my Cameron go. That has stuck with me my entire life.
I love it. I do. I love it.
I'm dying. No, you're not.
You just stuck a lump of coal up his ass to come out a diamond.
I hear when little kid ears. When I first heard that, I heard not. If you stick a lump of coal up his ass in 2 weeks, you have a diamond. When I heard as a kid, I sounded like in Twix, you'd have a diamond. Like, why are there chocolate bars up his ass? As a little kid, I didn't understand. Little kid ears hear things differently.
That's not even the funniest thing you just said.
What?
When you messed up, you said "cum in his ass," and then you started over.
I did?
Yes.
We're clipping that. Let's see. 18 minutes in. Okay, that's getting clipped.
Oh my god!
I'm putting together a lot of random clips.
And there's like, if you put a coal in his ass, and you didn't skip a beat.
I'm not working today. It's not right. I'm putting together a lot of different clips. I have a clip now that's going to go to that. I have another clip that started from last week, 2 weeks ago from Engage. I got a clip from last Monday when Devil and I were looking at the spanking video, the 2 chicks spanking each other sport thing. And at one point, we've been going at it for about 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and Devil just says something about, I'll put my dick in there.
Sounds about right.
So I'm putting together a nice little collection of clips of just random gay shit we all say, or in that case, devil shit, just random over-the-top sexual shit. So, wow, I didn't even hear myself say that. Okay, 18 minutes. Going to check that when I download this tomorrow to set up for the Reupload. Thank you. But my little kid here ears heard Twix between his. Okay, whatever. We're past it. Anyway. But yeah, so Cameron wasn't in on it at all. I don't think, and then he's so reluctant to do it. So but you're right. That is that hiccup. Sloan could re-record it, but then recording the funeral parlor message, it's strange credulity that they did it that quickly. And that's but either way, but it's easy to I can overlook it because it's the early setup, and we're skipping over the hard stuff. Ferris's introduction, he talked there. But now this is one of the things about this movie. Interesting. I'm speaking too quickly. Interesting about this movie. The fourth wall breaking. How do you feel about the fourth wall breaking?
It It works for me in this movie. A lot of fourth wall breaks in movies don't work. They seem to come out of the blue. And Doctor Who's done a few times, and every time it feels awkward and forced in, like Clara turning to wink at the camera a couple times. It's just weird. And so generally, I'm very against fourth wall breaks as a rule. This and Deadpool are the only two examples I can think of where it's been done well. And I can understand why people would have a problem with it. It is a little distracting. It can be obnoxious at times, but it works for me. So that's the subjective side of me. Loves it, adores it, wouldn't change a thing. But I can see that there are issues with it at the same time. So generally, I think it's still better than it could have been.
I think it works because it starts with it.
Oh, yeah, it's consistent. Consistency is important.
As soon as Ferris is alone, looks camera, they bought it. And then the music begins, and we're off, and we're right away engaged with Ferris. He's a bit of a scoundrel. He's a quick thinker. He's a liar. He's a cheat, but he's got that charisma, and that's what makes Ferris likable. His charisma. He pulls you in, and here's the thing that I think makes Ferris work as a character, and right away why it works. Everything Ferris is doing is just about him. He's not trying to do anything to anybody else. He's not. There's a level of narcissism in this, which I think, even though Ferris has, in my opinion, the weakest character development in the entire movie.
Yeah, there's no development.
No. There's one moment where it's like, okay, you can see he has done this, but I want to make a case, an argument about Ferris and his character development and him in general when we talk about the whole movie all the way to the end. But being a narcissist, it's all about him. All about what he wants to do. And in some cases, Sloane. That's as far as his narcissism extends. He will think about Sloane. And of course, he does think about Cameron by the end of the movie when everything goes to shit. But I appreciate the fact that they've crafted such a well-rounded character that despite the fact that he's got a lot of personality flaws that should make him unlikable because he doesn't give a shit about anybody else but himself, his charisma just pulls you in. And you're rooting for his day off. You're rooting for his skipping school.
Oh yeah, like if you peel away his personality, a lot of what he does isn't commendable, isn't something that a normal person would support. It's like just all his decisions, like you said, are very narcissistic and don't benefit anything, don't seem to be in pursuit of anything. But his charisma makes us forget that these are negative things that he's doing for the most part and just root for him.
And he does a lot of the adventure, the moments. He is doing negative stuff that is really screwing with other people who are in some cases just doing their job. Listen, Ed Rooney is an asshole.
And he brings it all on himself. I don't have sympathy for
Oh, none. But when it comes to just trying to run the school, he is kind of just doing his job. Once he leaves school property, then Rooney is off the rails and into the wilderness.
100%.
Breaking into the Bueller house, trying to break in there, randomly borderline assaulting people, like when he grabs the chick in the arcade. I've got you now, you little son of a bitch.
Oh, your ass is mine.
Mine. That's mine, yeah. And she has every right to spit that soda in his face.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much worse now that with his recent arrest, that actors.
Recent arrest, I know he got arrested for diddling, but I thought he was dead. I thought he died.
Is he dead? All right. When I say recent, I recently found out about it. We'll go with that. It might be the same thing you're talking about.
I know that it's kind of ironic years later that we know that Jeffrey Jones, who played Ed Rooney, a lot of stuff, that he looks like he might have done some diddly diddle. I'm pretty sure he has. Oh no, still says born. Maybe he isn't dead. Let me wiki that real quick. Wiki that, or before Legatus gets to it. See if I can beat Legatus to the punch.
It's impossible. Fastest round in the West.
No. He's still alive. He's still alive. He's still alive. I thought he was dead. Maybe I'm thinking of a movie where he died. Because No, yeah, no, he yeah, there's some situations surrounding him, so we'll keep his discussion limited in this for just purposes where we don't want to talk about that too much. But yeah, Ed Rooney deserves everything he gets, even what Jeannie does to him at the very end. And we'll talk about the iconic bus scene at the end, because this is one of these movies, maybe even one of the first movies in modern history where you literally must watch this movie from beginning to end to the final. Again, iconic thing number 2. Bomb, bomb. That is made its way through modern pop culture, and it hasn't gone away yet.
No, not at all. The movies are constantly referencing this film. People are always talking about it.
Yeah.
Every aspect of it is iconic, and it's one of the movies that popularized the end credit scene, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
And yeah, the end credit scenes are iconic. Even Deadpool did the parody of it at the end of his first film.
Why are you here? Go.
It's over.
It's over. Go. Yeah. So,
I love that joke.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have loved it as much if I'd seen it before I'd ever seen a Marvel movie or anything like that. But after, getting used to that, it's like, all right, the movie's not over yet. Let's see. Let's wait. And then to have that, just with the Marvel context, it made it so much funnier for me.
That's the thing. Well, here's the thing. I think everybody knew about it. Nobody missed it, because if you're in the theater and the credits roll and there's Rooney walking and the bus comes up, you're still going to watch.
Oh yeah, for that portion of it, but there's still that long period.
But you don't. But you watch. You're going to sit there and watch the whole thing, the bus, and then as soon as it ends, then why are you still here? So I don't think most people missed it. I think that little last stinger was, everybody always knew it was there, because if you're just watching something, if there's still a picture on the screen, you're going to stay seated and you're going to watch it over to the end. And of course, that whole bus scene is just fantastic. I bet you never been on a real school bus before. You want a gummy bear? Be in my pocket. They're warm.
It's so good.
And then he sees the folder, save Ferris. Rooney's another one. Rooney, what was it? Rooney eats it or something like that. Some slam at him in the booth. I wasn't looking yesterday when I was watching it, so I didn't take a look at what it was, because I was doing something else. But yeah, so just to bring Rooney to a close, Ed Rooney, as long as he's on school grounds, he's doing nothing wrong. As soon as he leaves school grounds, he's a villain. He gets everything he deserves. He has no right to be breaking into somebody's private home to see whether or not they're there. Has no right to do all kinds of shit. I mean, dude, he assaults the dog.
He does a lot to that dog, man.
And the dog gets him in the end.
Oh, yeah. And Jeannie's just on the inside, like, oh, yeah, murder that man. Oh, yeah. Just like getting off on it. It's so weird.
Before I want to spend, let's go over Jeannie real quick before we go into the whole day off, because we'll spend the rest of the show talking about the day off and the events and the characters, this and that. Jennifer Grey, Jeannie. Jennifer Grey, before she got her plastic surgery, she doesn't look like Jennifer Grey anymore. Jeannie, next to Cameron, probably has the most character development in this movie.
I could agree with that.
Starts off super bitch. You're made to dislike her for the simple fact that she's kind of presented as not so much as an antagonist of Ferris, but rooting against him. And the person who's rooting against your hero, you don't want to root for them. But again, I kind of feel for Jeannie a little bit as an adult, because she hasn't done anything wrong, but everybody treats her, especially in her family, differently than Ferris. I mean, he's the baby of the family. He gets going, and she gets the hard knocks. She didn't get the beneficial treatment. Now, sometimes it seems maybe there's some history of her earning it. Her belligerent attitude probably creates the problem in the first place. But when you go through the movie, after going through the experience of everything, when Rooney's at the house, and then it is unfair that they called her, that she got arrested for.
That's ridiculous. That always pisses me off.
That's not fair.
I love the stuff that takes place at the police station, and it's important to set up the whole Ferris return sequence, which is bananas. But yeah, they needed to provide evidence for why she would have been lying. Like a cop showed up, found no evidence, and then decided, oh, this must be a prank. But this is just like straight out from the bat, they're like, oh yeah, stop making this up, girl. It's like, she's sobbing right now to you.
Yeah.
Like, what about this phone call looks fake?
She legitimately had an intruder in the house. And now she kept the wallet because she found the wallet when they got home at the last minute. But there was somebody there, and I guess it's kind of the comedy of the incompetence of everybody else. And perhaps the fact is, perhaps John Hughes trying to tell us that despite the fact that Jeannie behaves belligerent the whole time, she's actually the most competent person in this movie. I'm just putting that out there. I'm just spitballing here, because every time she tries to get somebody to listen to what she's saying, she's greeted with the utmost incompetence from somebody who can't speak right on the phone. Literally, it's 911. They're not listening to her. She gets arrested. And then Charlie Sheen's junkie talks sense into her. Now, her making out with him, that's the whole thing. But literally, that's the whole character development with Jeannie. He says to her, maybe your problem isn't with your brother. Maybe you just have a problem with yourself. And look at yourself first. And why are you getting so bent out of shape over this? How does what he's doing affect you, really? Does it? Why do you care so much? And you realize he's speaking complete truth. What is Ferris's actions really doing to affect her? Except just pissing her off that he's getting away with it.
I don't know if this will affect your perception of the movie or your perception of me and just laugh at me, but ever since, I'm not kidding, the first time I watched this movie, I imagined Charlie Sheen's character as, if this were a fantasy, he'd have a great white flowing beard, be this guy in the tavern who gives this sage advice and then just leaves, like just that little nugget that the hero needs. And I just always imagined him as a sage, this junkie. This junkie is the modern day sage.
I think it's, well, I'm not going to completely laugh at you. It's funny, but because you think about it like this, I think it makes sense because this is a dude who's clearly hit rock bottom. I mean, they made Charlie Sheen up to look like a drug-addled, down in the dumps druggie, which he kind of was at one point.
He was.
But hey, Tiger, what is it? What was your thing? Tiger Blood. That whole period where everybody was saying Tiger Blood and all that shit around him. But no, it kind of makes sense that here's a dude, and I mean, maybe again, this is adult me talking. It makes sense. John, he's showing us here's a dude who has nothing left to lose. He is clearly probably gonna go to jail. So you're gonna get complete truth from this guy. It makes sense that you're getting the truth from somebody who's looking at the world of, well, I got nothing left to worry about. I'm in trouble now. I'm just going to talk to this chick here and tell her the hard truth after showing this stuff, and then I'm going to make out with her. And then, yeah, so I like Jeannie's character development because she comes from, and then, of course, she saves her brother at the end. And that shows you, she found that little bit inside herself of, yeah, you know what? This really doesn't bother me because it doesn't really mean anything to me. So I'm going to save him in this moment. And even though her lie doesn't hold merit, obviously, the fact that she had his wallet meant she had Rooney dead to freaking rights. And that she could, and that means he was defeated utterly. All right, you want to say anything else on that before we move on?
Not particularly, but you did mention a little bit there that the utter incompetence that everyone shows to Jeannie. I think that prevalates a lot of the movie, and it does bother me, like how dumb the parents are, how dumb the police officers are.
Yeah,
and funnily enough, one of my favorite characters is Rooney's assistant. I don't know why.
Grace.
I love her so much. I love Grace. But the incompetence, if a cop had showed up, for example, after Ginny's call to pick her up, there's rampant evidence of an intruder on the outside of the house. Remember how much damage Rooney did with the hose, with the flower pot? The dog is unconscious at this point.
And there's a record of his car getting towed away. There'll be
There's
a
the record of that.
Yeah.
And then you just see him where, like, you just need to look at Rooney. It's like, oh, yeah, that fits that. That fits that.
Yeah.
It's just the incompetence of this film is aggravating to me, even beyond the hilarity that it often causes. But Ferris's parents, his dad driving up next to his son running on the road and he doesn't realize it. There's just, it strains it too much
And
for
how did
even me.
How does he not recognize his son's girlfriend in the taxi next to them? I mean, yes, she's wearing sunglasses, but I mean,
that one I could forgive. There's not any evidence that they met before or if it's a public relationship.
I guess.
That one I can if Cameron were the one who was left sitting up, yeah, that would be a problem. He's Cameron and Ferris are childhood best friends. That's got to be someone he's familiar with. Sloane, I can let that slide, but his dad and his mom are just incompetent. How have they managed to create this massively successful life for them and their children with that mansion and jobs that break in a godless amount of money?
She's a real estate agent, and he's just a powerful businessman that works in a.
With their level of intelligence, I'd be impressed if they didn't burn McDonald's fries.
All right, one more thing before we leave the Bueller residence. One of my favorite parts of the movie is when Jeannie thinks the cops have come to save her, and she opens the door. I hear you're down and feeling ill, blah blah blah. Because I'm the nurse that likes to. Somebody sent him a whore. Somebody said Ferris a whore. And that's the second time we see Louis Anderson as the flower guy too. You see Louis Anderson twice. He delivers the first flowers to Rooney, and then he comes back with the nurse whore. And I was just thinking, man, somebody really wanted Ferris to feel better. I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, she's in a chicken outfit, isn't she?
No, she had a nurse outfit.
No, I know there's the nurse aspect, but no, I said that when I was watching the film just a couple hours ago, and Rachel's like, no, she's gonna say cluck. It's like she's gonna say fuck.
Yeah,
it's like no, she's got chicken ears on, so she's it's supposed to make you think fuck, but it's supposed to really be cluck. I'd never heard that before.
She's wearing a nurse hat.
I need to rewatch it. It's chicken something, but yeah, I'll have to rewatch it. But yeah, every time I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely
I'm the nurse who wants to fuck. Her tits are out. She's a whore. Somebody said,
"Oh, absolutely!" I think that's hilarious.
I love it.
She'd go to jail forever because he's still underage, but it is still pretty.
Actually, he's 18. He's about to graduate.
Oh, you could be 17 and almost graduating. I didn't know he was 18 yet.
It's spring. I'm going to assume he's 18 because it's spring because they're going off to college next year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume he's of legal age.
Then go for it. Order him all the hookers you want.
Yep, hookers and blow. Anyway, all right. So let's look at the whole adventure of the day. We're going to skip over the school. I want to skip over Ferris bullying Cameron to take the car, all that stuff. Let's just get past it. Let's look at the adventure of the day for the remainder of time we got here. It's an interesting day. They go about art museums, leaving the car with the dudes who that's a famous scene where they just joyride in the car. And of course that sets up the final plot point of the movie. But how do you feel about their day off and everything they do from top to bottom?
It's insane. It's utterly insane, utterly impossible on a myriad of levels. Mm-hmm. And then a parade comes out of nowhere. Is there a holiday?
I love the parade scene, though, dude. When I was a little
fantastic.
Kid, every time it comes, I mean, remember, this is little kid me. I didn't own this on VHS. I had rented it and seen it, but then this is the birth of cable television. So Ferris Bueller's Day On in the 80s was Day Off was on a lot in the 80s, whether it was regular cable or it was HBO or Showtime Movie Channel. It was on a lot. Whenever that scene comes on, I'm singing Donka Shane. I'm singing Shake It a Baby, Twist and Shout. I'm singing along with it. Mm-hmm. I sang along yesterday. I'm sitting here. I'm playing Star Trek Infinite. I'm still going Shake It a Baby now. I'm still doing it. Going Donka Shane, darling, Donka. And I appreciate the payoff on Donka Shane. He's singing it in the shower. Mm-hmm. And then he does it in parade. I appreciate that. We appreciate payoffs around here. But I love the parade. And as ridiculous as it is, that he just manages to get onto the float, manages to convince people that it's okay to do it, and then puts on a performance and doesn't get busted. His dad is looking down from the office, and he's dancing. Everybody's dancing. They're all caught up in it. But I love that scene. It is ridiculous, but I love it. It is, again, we've gone 2 iconic things already. We have Bueller, and the Donkashane to Twist and Shout. That's iconic. These things, again, have traversed modern pop culture to where they're revered, they're celebrated, and it's fun. And you can't not get just that feel good rush when it happens. And I love that. That is the best part of the day. But
absolutely. Yeah. It would have made more sense if the whole film had been planned, just like you're saying, like he had planned his day off specifically to go to the parade. Maybe like this is a holiday of some kind, and the parade, like there's just not a whole lot of setup. Like the setup with the shower is great, the setup and payoff with the shower song, but with a lot of the stuff that happens, his plan, it's his charisma and his immense intelligence can only take him so far, and coincidences take him the rest of the way. It works for me in that it doesn't take me out of the film, and I can laugh and love this film every single time, but it has a shit ton of inconsistencies, plot holes,
and that's the thing. As fun as each thing is, and there's 2 points I want to talk about. I want to talk about the fun of this and how it is an amazing day of adventure they go on. Then I want to talk about the like you said, the inconsistencies of how does this all work. And then I want to talk about the fact that when you look at it, the whole adventure is kind of to save Cameron from himself in a way. I'll pose that theory in a moment. So the adventure itself, it's an interesting thing. They go about the lunch. Are you Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago? Then all that good stuff. The art museum, that's more of a serious tone to it, which is what leads me to my Cameron theory. What gets me the most though is the baseball game. That's one of the things that gets me the most in terms of the continuity of baseball games go on for hours. And yeah, maybe it was a day game, not important. This is the 80s. Tickets weren't maybe that expensive back then. But he's on, and that, but no, it's the joke. He's on TV catching the foul ball. Rooney doesn't see him. I get it. It's the joke. But when did they have time to go all over the place and go to the baseball game?
Yeah, what time of day is a baseball game going to be going on a weekday, no less?
Yeah, and because it's spring. I mean, this is
spring training game, maybe.
I mean, it's spring because they haven't graduated. Because they remember high school graduation happens at the end of spring, beginning of summer. It's a May thing, usually May, sometimes June. So it's mid-spring at the earliest. So again, I don't know. Maybe baseball season just started. I don't know,
but it's just a great example of there's too much going on in the film. There's too much condensed into a single day. Like I said before, regardless of Ferris's side of things, everything that's happening with getting a plane with a banner, getting a water tower, getting it in the newspaper. But then when you get into his stuff, like you said, baseball games, they take 3 to 4 hours. We're
not saying they stayed there the whole time.
No.
But it's just getting
if it's
going to
be worth the money. And who paid? Yeah. Did Cameron pay? Because he seems to be the only one who's able to afford something like that. And does his dad, who's incredibly withholding, allow him access to money?
Again, guys, we're just being objectively critical of this. We love this movie. It's a fun movie. I mean, dude, like I said, I've been holding up. I own it. I wouldn't like this. I wouldn't own this movie if I didn't like it. But we're trying to give an objective view here, and we're not so much. Again, we're trying to give a different discussion because people could just talk about, oh, this scene is funny. That's it. We like this joke, but we're trying to give it a different breakdown here. What's going on, just so that it's entertaining in terms of, okay, we're really having a serious discussion about this movie. So that's again, these are one of the few points I do take off for this movie: the inconsistency of what goes on in the day period. It doesn't track for me all the way to the parade, which is the end of it, and then they get the car back. But here's the thing. Again, now here's what I want to talk about seriously then. I feel like this whole thing, this whole adventure is the case study of Cameron Fry, a guy who self-admits to being bullied and pushed around by everybody, especially his dad. He has a grim look on life. He's a hypochondriac made by because of his mom. He doesn't seem to have any other friends besides Ferris and Sloane. That everybody loves Ferris. Sloane clearly has friends, but it's kind of made. You get the feeling Cameron has no other friends. No other friends. You just there was no evidence for that. It's just a feeling. So without Ferris, Cameron has no excuse to really do anything except mope and be stuck in his rut. So Ferris says, at one point in the movie, I want to take him, I want to show him a good time. We want to have this day together. And you watch the evolution of Cameron, because a lot of the poignant moments, like when Ferris asks Sloane, you want to get married? And she's like, yeah. And then Cameron's like, no, I'll give you 2 reasons not to get married. My mom and my dad, they hate each other. Is that? And you look at the opposite end. Ferris' parents, as clueless as they are clearly in love. They clearly have a happy marriage. They have an odd family, but they have a marriage. So Cameron has a very sour look on life, and this whole adventure seems to turn it around and make him not afraid, because that's the thing. He's tired of being afraid. Is that? Am I off the wall here, Jed? Am I in the wilderness on this?
I mean, you can see it. I don't think it was the primary perspective of the film or the highest priority.
I don't think so, but it's there. It's there.
It's absolutely there, because, like you mentioned, Ferris doesn't really have a character arc, and Jeannie does to a certain extent, but Cameron has a good character arc throughout it. The idea of standing up, even though he chose a terrible point to stand up. Like, you want to stand up from a position of strength.
You are so fucked.
Yeah. Like, if you want to prove you're an adult that is better than what you've been treated your whole life, you don't start that out by wrecking your dad's car. That seems very infantile. So it's a good arc, but it does end in, like, the next scene would be like, oh yeah, he got fucking destroyed, rightfully so. And can you imagine the consequences? Like, you want to it's good that he's standing up. He absolutely deserves to fight back against his abusive parents, but it doesn't.
It was not from a position of strength.
No.
Yeah, and that's and in that moment though, Ferris has his one moment of character development. He's willing to take the hit. He's willing to sacrifice all the lies, all the deceit he's done, all the trickery, all the perfect planning, whether it was pre-planned or spontaneous. He's willing to sacrifice it all to protect his best friend. I give Ferris that. That shows you that deep down, Ferris isn't a complete asshole.
Yep.
He's like, it's too much heat. I'll take it.
Well, with Cameron, there is a strong possibility, because he is family, that there wouldn't be necessarily legal consequences to wrecking the car. But if Ferris is the one that comes out, he's facing jail time. He's facing an arrest.
I mean, Cameron could just, and he might have just made up a story if he just had enough and, kicked the shit out of the car and drove it out the window. I mean, he's obviously going to make something up and not throw Ferris under the bus.
Right, yeah. Ferris isn't going to be roped into it. But Cameron is taking less risk than Ferris, which is why it's such a big moment for Ferris, too. It's like, I'm willing to go to jail for you, brother. And the movie doesn't do a good job of portraying that, but
it's too late. It's because, like you said, Ferris, we like Ferris, we're rooting for Ferris, but Ferris has zero character development. He basically he thinks he's always going to win. His overconfidence is through the roof, and we'll talk about this in a minute. When we
proves correct,
we're going to talk about the finale, the final 10 minutes now, because I think it's a fair point to do it. But Ferris has no character development, and Cameron's development. It's a good story, even though, and I agree with what you said, that that's not the moment to pick to man up to your dad after you. Whatever story you make up destroyed his car. So, and we don't know if Morris beat the crap out of him or not. We don't know. So we'll never know. And that's part of the thing. We don't really want to know. It's one of those things in movies. We're not going to tell you what happens after that. Although I guess, wait a minute, there might have been more. Did you know there was a Ferris Bueller TV show?
No.
Yes.
Who was involved?
It was a short-lived one season. I know what the actor who they got to play Ferris looks like. I know that he was on the Dick Van Dyke Doctor show, Diagnosis Murder. I know he was on that for a while.
Charlie Shatler and Jennifer Aniston.
There were a lot of people in that show, in that, and it obviously takes place in their senior year. It was one season, and it was short-lived. I remember watching it, but I don't remember much else. I don't remember if it was good or bad, because little kid memory and that kind of fleeting. It wasn't something that was on all the time. I caught I caught about most of it, I think, but and then it was gone, and it's forgotten. Nobody remembers there was a Ferris Bueller TV show. So, but I guess maybe in that you'd know if Cameron had fallout from that. I don't think they ever referenced the day off in the show.
Yeah, it's probably a prequel.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so Ferris taking the heat. That was a little villain, but then right away we go into the sequence. Let's talk about the final sequence, then we'll talk about a couple other things before we get out of here. The chase, the chase home, I guess we can call it, the sprint home, where it's Ferris running, cutting through neighborhoods to beat Jeannie, who's speeding in the car with their mom. How he she actually beats him home. She does beat him home. But that whole sequence, as fun as it is, it's ridiculous.
Oh, 100%. I can see the justification because he can cut through blocks. She has to drive around him. She gets slowed down by the police. Like, I can see him beating her there. That I don't see as a problem. But a lot of the other aspects, like how long it takes him to jump from the trampoline over the fence, that's a slow-mo shot that they cut back to like 7 times as 50 different things happen.
He stops to talk to the girls.
He does.
I mean, he just said, "I love you" to Sloane, and he stops to talk to the 2 chicks in the bathing suits.
It seems in character for the Ferris, but yeah, it doesn't bode well for his future relationship with Sloane.
Yeah, it doesn't. Also, it's like, dude, don't do that. Don't do that. So we get to the final sequence. He makes it there, but then there's Rooney. You're buzzed to give him a speech, and then Jeannie saves him. We talked about Jeannie saving him, that Jeannie had every right to let him get busted, and that's her moment of realizing it's okay. I'm going to save my brother. Blood thicker than water. I'm going to screw over Rooney, who has screwed me over today and invaded my home. But then Ferris gets up there. Had the tense moment to stop the snoring, all that stuff.
Just so dumb. I love it, but it's so.
But yeah, I mean, well, it's our hero has completed his journey in this movie. He got away with it, but he feels no remorse over anything he's done. And that's why I'm going to pose you this question, Jed.
Okay.
I've been waiting all the time. We're here at the end of the show now. And people might find this controversial. Is Ferris Bueller a villain?
There's an argument for it, because he causes a lot of problems. You change the music throughout the movie, they change some color grading, and you could definitely see the film try to make an argument for that.
I mean, let's go through it. He steals his best friend's dad's car.
Mm-hmm.
He commits fraud on many occasions.
Absolutely.
He stole somebody's lunch reservation at a very expensive restaurant.
Lucky they chose someone who didn't show up.
Yeah. He had Cameron impersonate a police officer on the phone to that maitre d'.
Mm-hmm.
He never actually. Now, I don't think he never steals anything other than the reservation, but he co-ops the parade. I don't know if that's villainous, but it's pretty fucked up when you think about it.
He casts a spell on everyone to dance and sync and to do the Thriller.
Don't know about that.
I know.
But he does this all for his own amusement. And maybe to impress his girlfriend. So he doesn't do, and he essentially also set up a situation that gets his best friend, even though Cameron has some personal growth out of this, out of not being a sad sack anymore. He still set his best friend up to get probably the worst. I don't want to say I won't say physical beating, but in the worst trouble of his life to that point.
Oh, absolutely.
And then gets home with a smile on his face.
Well, and all the damage he did to Sloane, too, because, yeah, he got away with it day of, but Sloane is going to have to answer some questions like, the whole school thinks your grandma's dead.
Yeah.
The whole school thinks I make out with my daughter.
Yeah, that too. So that's how it is in their family.
Yeah, like, there's going to be some questions Sloane has to ask.
And also, I think
a good father would not let Sloane see Ferris again.
Sloane's stupid. She's an idiot. She's not very bright.
No.
I mean, he's going to marry me.
No, he's not.
No, he's not. He's not. No, he's going to go off to college and he's going to do his Ferris thing there and do what Van Wilder is like, what if Ferris Bueller went to college? I mean, that's what it would be. Most popular man on campus, runs the school from his bedroom. I mean, that's what. So there's a fair argument, and Kenzo says in the chat he's white. That has nothing to do with it. It's nothing to do with it. There's an argument to be made on a more serious discussion, maybe a different type of stream. Ferris Bueller might be a villain in all this. He's our hero in this, but he does a lot of fucked up shit. And he gets away with it, and he feels zero remorse. Life moves pretty quickly. If you don't stop and look at it, it may pass you by. I mean, he's still giving you one-liner advice at the end to just go F off. So, other than that, Jay, do you have anything else you want to add?
Not particularly. Despite all the issues in the film and how straightforward it seems, it does breed a lot of interesting conversations like what we've had with Ferris being a villain or not. Like, there are layers to it despite its issues, and it's always a fascinating film to discuss with people and see. It's not universally loved. I know people who refuse to watch it.
Really?
A second time. I know people who've never seen it. And
wow.
Like, there is some interesting discussions to be had, and I get it. This movie is weird and wild, but
it's fun.
It's very fun, but that might not necessarily work for everyone, and I completely understand that. But
even though we complained about the time lapses, it still flows nicely. The movie has a flow to it. It has a first act, the setup, the middle act, the adventure. The third act, the consequences or almost consequences. So it has a flow. It has a structure. The acting is great. Everybody does a great job. Everybody's cast perfectly in it. The humor is spot on. It's not laugh out loud humor, but it's yeah. It's like oh yeah. It's that kind of humor. It's where you're just smiling, you're having a good time, and like we said, it has so many iconic moments that have stood the test of time in pop culture. I mean, we only listed a couple of them. Movies littered with them. And that's part of the charm of 80s. It's 80s charm. And even though this takes place in the 80s, you realize if this took place in modern day, imagine if they tried to do a Ferris Bueller's Day Off remake. It wouldn't work.
No,
not with social media. Wouldn't work. Would not work. This is pre-social media.
I don't think it would work, like you're saying, in modern day, mainly because of the state of Hollywood. But the social media element does add something interesting.
Oh no, I don't mean the state of Hollywood. I just mean
I'm continuing. I'm
okay.
continuing. But I actually think the social media aspect might add some interesting angles, like how much money would be raised for Ferris's kidney if they started like a petition or like a big fundraising event, like all the non-Ferris stuff, like the peripheral stuff, that could be really funny. And like it becomes a worldwide phenomenon. Save Ferris trending on Twitter. And Like I can see them going all out.
I mean, and yeah, so it would. There are aspects of work, but then there are aspects where the concept of ditching and doing everything you are where you're in plain sight.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to get away with it.
He would get, as say in the movie, he would get busted. He
Mm-hmm.
would get busted. All right. Soundtrack is the soundtrack. It's got some 80s stuff in there. It's got Star Wars theme at one moment. It's just the most classic thing is boom, boom. That is just it goes on forever. Go on forever. All right. That being said, let's rate it away. It's my week, so I'll go first. You guys have heard my pros and cons. The pros, it's fun, it's enjoyable. The cast is great. The story, while zany, it has that 80s feel to it where you accept it. You go with it. You have the good time. Despite the fact that we make a case Ferris might be a villain, his charisma pulls you in instantly. You're rooting for Ferris. You're rooting for Cameron. You want to sleep with Sloane. I mean, it's all there. You're into it. You like it that Rooney gets it in the end. I enjoy Jeannie's development as a character. The whole thing. You have those iconic moments. I love the float scene, the parade scene. I get a kick out of that. It's a lot of fun. But again, there are some issues. Again, the timing aspect, they got to take points off for that. I question that. And again, as an adult, I look and say, Ferris learns nothing. All the other John Hughes movies, people can actually learn stuff. The other John Hughes movies, whether we like them or not, there are lessons to be learned, and people evolve and change in those movies. Ferris is no different than he was at the beginning. So I take points over that. So I'm going to go with 8 out of 10 because it is an iconic movie. If you like this stuff, it's fun, it's great. But there are some minor flaws to it that when you're thinking critically and objectively, I'm going to take those points off. Jed, where are you?
I'm very much in a similar camp to you. This is actually one of my favorite movies of all time. I've seen it at least a dozen times, probably more. Like I watch it a lot, several times a year. And it is a phenomenal film that people will remember forever. But from a script standpoint, from a continuity standpoint, to a consistency standpoint, there are a godless amount of flaws and plot holes that I have to bring it down substantially. So my score, despite my love for the film, I have to give it a 6.5.
Oh, wow. Okay. Damn. But then again, you guys understand how we roll around here. Now, you know what my score, I tend to score very highly unless I'm completely angry at something, and Jed's going to be objective. All right, so there you go, guys. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. We recommend this movie. Again, I wouldn't own it if I didn't like it. It's just we want to give you guys something to think about. We don't want you to just hear us go, "Oh, I love it. It's so good."
Yeah, we strive for substantive discussion.
Yes, that too. We want to have an actual discussion of these things. All right, Jed, do we have a movie for next week yet?
We don't have a movie for next week, I'm afraid.
Okay, all right. So we will update you guys. And guys, I know I don't promote it a lot lately. I've been slacking on general promotion outside of just telling you what's on the stream. I will get better at that. I promise. I know I'm trying to remember to do. I got a little lazy with some of my YouTube practices. I know. I apologize. So we will catch you guys again next week. We thank all of you watching now and on the replay. And if you had a good time, hit that like button. Subscribe to me. Subscribe to Jed. We're here to entertain you. Defeat the YouTube algorithm. Don't let it keep us down. We will see you guys next time. Until then, take it easy. Have a good night or day wherever you may be.
Chevron 1, encoded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your test. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2 encoded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's on reflexes.
Well, I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
and somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monkey boy.
Great Scott. Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass!
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with Al.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is